So in today's video, I'm going to offer a retraction. I made an incorrect statement and I'm going to tell you what the incorrect statement was. It was in this video where I talked about Colonel Macgregor and the counteroffensive. So let's look at first what Colonel Macgregor had to say, and we're going to play that here briefly. He was talking about the counteroffensive.
Jet fighters, 2 helicopters. The Russians, by comparison, had 71 men killed and 210 wounded.
71 men killed and 210 wounded. That's about 300. And Ukrainian casualties were close to 4,000. Well, where's that coming from? Well, it's coming from here. And let's skip ahead. And then Russian military suffered 71 dead, 210 wounded. Here, and he got it in RT. And you can also see that RIA Novosti. This is the same article. It's actually Russian translated to English. During the 3 days of hostility, the armed forces of Ukraine in all directions lost up to 3. So I was showing you that to show you that the 71 dead and 210 injured is Russian propaganda. Macgregor is repeating Russian talking points directly. So if you don't care for the mainstream media and you're listening to Macgregor, you're absorbing Russian state media. But that's not where the retraction is. The retraction comes a little bit later. So a little bit later, I was talking about different sources that I use because I try to triangulate in different sources in order to give a greater approximation of truth. I don't know that I can necessarily pin my hopes on one particular source. And you shouldn't pin your hopes on one particular source. I learned this in organizations where if I listen to what Scott said, and then I listen to what Dave said, and then I listen to what John said, and then I listen to what Sarah said, somewhere in the middle of that, I'm probably triangulating on the truth when I hear facts continue to line up. But just listening to Scott or just listening to John isn't going to give me necessarily the right version of it. They have their own viewpoints, and so I'm trying to get to the facts. So here's what I had to say. Huge losses. This was carried by Reuters. Here's another one. Now this is NDTV. It's a Chinese newspaper, but not officially linked to the Chinese government. Science fiction claim. Okay, so I said that NDTV was a Chinese newspaper not officially linked to the Chinese government. And so I got comments like, this channel is a joke. He says that NDTV is Chinese when a simple Google search shows that it's New Delhi television. Might want to get a map there, professor. Like, you're not a real professor. I'll tell my students. What I was really referring to, and I misspoke, so I offer an apology. I was referring to NTD, which is a New York-based global television network founded in 2001 by Chinese Americans who fled communism, and I misspoke. But I'm wrong. And I'm clearly wrong. And when you're wrong, the lesson here is, and thank you for that, by the way, to Agent Hex, because you actually led me to a useful talking point. When you're wrong, admit you're wrong and move on. Nothing good comes from trying to cover up that you said something wrong, because then you just become more and more untrustworthy over time. So admit even small things and you'll be able to get greater credibility. Now, again, that's a small thing. Here's a larger thing. Here is Reuters talking about the explosion at the dam. So what we know is that the dam was destroyed. We don't know, we have it 100% certainty, right? We believe that there was some kind of explosion with a relative certainty, although Ryan Macbeth is going to argue something very different. And I watched his video, a number of you told me, go watch it. And it was very compelling. Now, what you're looking for when you're trying to understand this is not just consistency, not just internal, you're looking for internal and external consistency and credibility. This was a pretty good argument that he had, and I don't want to take anything away from Ryan. I think he does a very good job at what he does. I don't see it the same way because I also see other pieces of the puzzle. Like, so, and he talked about some of these. Like, so there was an explosion at the dam. Ukrainian and U.S. intelligence reported seismic data, and he showed the seismic data, but said he couldn't really tell from the type of seismic data that it was. There was also some satellite, whatever, and he spent money to try to buy the satellite technology over it. So he could be wrong. I could be wrong, and we could both be wrong. Or he could be partly right, I could be partly right. But here's what we do know. We know it wasn't the Ukrainians. Like the Russians are saying Ukraine blew up the Kakhovka Dam as revenge for a failed offensive. We know that wasn't it. Or we have a very high certainty that that wasn't it. So sometimes we're dealing with probabilities or how percentages of how certain we are. We're very certain that they blew up the dam. Or that the dam was destroyed. We think it was blown. We think the Russians did it. And so with each step, as we add more and more, we're less and less sure. But we still can paint a picture based on the facts that we have. Now, the longer you spend time doing something, the more of a framework that you have to understand whether something is a way or not. And sometimes you can't even articulate it, but you still should be trying to cite your sources. But my greater point here is this. Talking about a correction and a retraction. A correction in journalism, it alerts your audience to factual errors that do not take away from your main point. Okay, NDT, NTV, or NDTV. Wow, I can't even say it now. The difference between TD and NDTV is fairly minor, right? So that's a correction, but I'm even going to call it a retraction. I screwed up. Okay, it informs your audience of factual errors that impact the main points of the statements. Now, I'll call it a retraction because my main point is trying to clearly triangulate, articulate what is true as far as we know it from these multiple sources. I'm not trying to be the first person to inform you about something. I'm trying to be the most accurate. So even something like this, I'm going to say is not accurate. Now, on the other side of that equation, the other side's not even trying. So they continually say things. This is RT again. That's Russia Today, the same source that Macgregor was drawing on earlier. 1 year after the violent coup in Ukraine, the Russian side will say it's a coup without providing facts. And if you're on the Russian side of this and you can provide me facts, you'll be doing me a service. If you can prove to me somehow that there was a coup. I don't believe you can, but if you can, please put it in the links below. I want to hear it. I want to know what you think is a coup. Now, people that were in the Maidan call it a revolution. They think it's different. They think their protest led to a peaceful change of government as the president fled and a new president was later installed and then another voted in and then another voted in. So it's like that. So I don't see how it can be a coup, but if you can do it, but you can't just assert that something is and make me believe that it is. If you say that my ice cream, which is chocolate, is vanilla, just asserting that it's the other doesn't make it so. So you can't do that. And then finally, I'm going to leave you with this. Today is day 475, I believe, of this horrible, terrible war in Ukraine. 1 year ago today, I used to do a segment in January and February called A Year Ago Today, and it was really helpful to go back and look at what Russia was saying before they invaded. Oh, we're not going to invade. Or look at what happened just after they invaded, and you see people like Ritter and Macgregor and Duran and others saying, oh, this war is over. They're toast, right? Okay, so this is 3 months into the war, day 110. If you go back to day 110, I'll create the link here, day 110, and see what happened. What's transpired over 3 months or what was going on that particular day. It just gives you a greater framework in which you can understand what's going on. Okay, that's really all that I want to share today. I hope that helps you. So on the side, you see this bar that says subscribe, and I would appreciate it if you would subscribe if you're interested in this. And below that, I Need Ammunition, Not a Ride. It's free on Kindle Unlimited, and people have told me that it's changed their mind about the war. They used to wonder, why are we even doing this? And they understand. Or now I'm a professor who has built multiple leadership programs, and I'm intentionally trying to infuse this book with leadership principles that you can see through Zelensky's life. I even went to a conference last October where I presented the paper on Zelensky as a transformational servant and empowering leader, using the leadership literature to explain why he does match these different categories. So I hope that that's helpful. Everything I'm trying to do is help you have context. And it's very needed because the other side is trying to just diminish our ability to understand what is actually transpiring in this war. Thank you for your time and the likes and the subscribes and sharing this on social media. That really helps it. Thank you for the coffees. Thank you for your comments, your support. I really appreciate all of that. Thank you for being the kind of person who cares about Ukraine.